Hello, everybody. Welcome to Squared Circle Calendar. And on this episode, we're going to be taking a look back at November 1975 in the world of professional wrestling. See all the happenings and goings on around that time, and seeing, um, some of the big events and stuff going on. So, without no further ado, let's get started. So, first off, let's look at the big the main world titles. So NWA World Women's um, Tag Team Championship, the NWA World Women's Championship, the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship, and the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, during this time, we would find the women's tag team champions Donna Christanello and Tony Rose, as well as the World Junior Heavyweight um, champion Hiro Matsuda down in Florida. Christanello and Tony Rose fending off the challenges of Early Dawn and Joyce Grable, while Hiro Matsuda was concluding his tour of the Southeast prior to heading over to Japan to participate in the Open Championship Series, in which he would, of course, defend the World Junior um, his time in Florida there towards the end of, or at the beginning of November, he was defending against the likes of Mike Graham and Omar Negro. While this was going on, NWA World Heavyweight Champion Jack Briscoe was touring much of the Southeast, going back and forth, of course, between Florida and Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, between Florida and the Mid-Atlantic area, in which he'd defend the NWA World Heavyweight title against the likes in Florida, including Harley Race. Harley Race, Larry Hennig, and King Curtis Iaukea. And then when he'd go up to Mid Atlantic, he would of course be defending the title against Wahoo McDaniel and Paul Jones. He would also have a few one-shot title defenses, including having a stop in Knoxville on the 21st, defending against Ron Wright, defending his title in St. Louis later that night against Rocky Johnson, and then at the very end of the month on the 30th, defending the NWA World Heavyweight title in Toronto as well. Now, as we move on to the international scene, we head over to Japan, in which one of the big stories we were starting to see here is International Wrestling Enterprises and All Japan starting a bit of a talent exchange, in which Akihisa Takachiho, later known as the Great Kabuki, and Samson Kusuwada went over to do a couple shows for them during their big winter series. They would, of course, some guys from IWE would participate in the next month's Open Championship Series, which would eventually become the Champion Carnival. Um, um, of course, all three major Japanese promotions, IWE, New Japan, and All Japan, were all having some series here in November. In IWE, it was their big winter series among the gaijin who were invited over. Most of them coming over from Canada. It would include coming over from the Montreal area, having wrestled previously in Puerto Rico, of course. The tag team known as Combat, Mad Dog Michael Michel, the older brother of Rick Martel, and Pierre Martin, who would later become known to WWF fans as Frenchie Martin, the manager of Dino Bravo in 86-87. They would, of course, capture the IWE, IWA World Tag Team Champions from Great Kusatsu and Mighty Inoue, and would hold it for, of course, about a month. Among some of the other people on the among the other gaijin who were invited over include Serge Dumont coming over from the Maritimes area, having from ESA Eastern Sports Association, Gordon Ivy from Stampede Wrestling. Also had a wrestler by the name of King Tiger also participating in the second Tokon series of New Japan. For New Japan Pro Wrestling would include coming over from Puerto Rico, the Castillo brothers from Central Europe, Ivan Karamazov, coming over from Detroit, Guy Mitchell under the mask calling himself Mr. X, Bearcat Wright coming over from Mid America, and Ricky Hunter coming over from the Pacific Northwest Territory, all participating in the second Tokon series in New Japan. And then, as this is going on, the Giant Series, the second Giant Series is happening in All Japan, reuniting the Texas Outlaw tag team of Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes. Dick Murdoch coming over from the tri-state area. Dusty Rhodes coming over from Florida, reuniting the Texas Outlaw teams that was very successful from '69 to '71, as well as a couple other Mid-South talent, former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Ken Mantell and Doug Summers. As we move out, as we move west from, of course, Japan and international scene, as we head over to Canada, as the Eastern Sports Association wrestling season was coming down to an end, Rudy Kay would defeat Bulldog Bob Brown for the Maritimes Provinces version of the NWA North American Heavyweight Championship. As we get now down into the states here, in the northeast section of the country, where at the time the Worldwide Wrestling Federation territory, what we know of now today as the WWE, Bruno Sammartino is of course fending off the challenges to his WWF World Heavyweight title from the likes of Ivan Koloff, managed by Captain Lou Albano, and Superstar Billy Graham, under the management, of course, of the Grand Wizard. The Blackjacks would on the 18th, the Blackjacks would drop the WWF World Tag Team Championships on I believe it was a championship wrestling taping for television. They would drop the titles to Louis Sardon and Tony Parisi. We move a little further south down in the Mid-Atlantic area. Terry Funk on the 9th would win a tournament to capture the vacated NWA, the Mid-Atlantic version of the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship that was vacated upon Johnny Valentine's career coming to an end due to injury sustained in the plane crash on October 4th. Later in the month, of course, on Thanksgiving, Paul Jones would then defeat Terry Funk for the U.S. title, vacating the television title. Also on Thanksgiving, down in Georgia, the Spoiler would defeat Mr. Wrestling 2 for the NWA Georgia heavyweight title, as Gary Hart would lead him to that title, months after him suffering the injuries he suffered in the February plane crash in Florida. Dick Slater was still continuing to be a dominant force in the Macon and Columbus areas of Georgia Championship Wrestling. and you had the, we then would of course move down to Florida. See, Harley Race would be kind of finishing up his run there. Um, let's see now what else. What are some of the other major things going on? Of course, Ken Lucas was still a dominant force in Gulf Coast territory. In the Mid America territory in Tennessee and Memphis and in Nashville. There was a bit of a rivalry starting to brew between Bullet Bob Armstrong and Jerry Lawler for the NWA for the Mid America version of the NWA Southern Heavyweight title. Bullet Bob coming off of his feud with Mongolian Stomper a couple months back. Um, would end up having to vacate the title at some point um, due to injury. Um, so, and you had the intern still a dominant force in the Memphis area, having being the current Southern, Southern Tag Team Champion there. Let's see, in Detroit, you'd have Mark Lewin as the continuing his reign as the Detroit version of the United States Heavyweight Champion. The Detroit versions of World Tag Team Champions were they were known as the Islanders. Afan Sika, later known as the Wild Samoans to WWF fans. Um, Ed Wiskowski was still dominating Central States territory. Um, Harley Race was still the Missouri State Heavyweight title holder. And that and then you'd have and then recently in the Pacific Northwest, Jesse Ventura had recently migrated up there and was starting a feud with Jimmy Snuka over the Pacific Northwest heavyweight title. As we get through, after we get through, of course, the NWA, we look at the AWA as well. Nick Bockwinkel would eventually, on the 8th, I believe, would take the AWA World Heavyweight title from he would defeat Vern Gagne and would start a 5-year run at this point under the management of Bobby Heenan. Of course, Bobby Duncombe would come and join the Heenan family stable there, and upon his completion of his WWF contract, Blackjack Lanza would join that stable as well. Late, towards the end of '75, within the next couple months. In Indianapolis on the 29th, Pepper Gomez would defeat Ox Baker for the WWA World Heavyweight Championship. Ox Baker coming off a tour of Japan, coming back from a tour of Japan. As we head down to Mexico, the UWA would establish, as I was saying, the Universal Wrestling Association in Mexico, established by Ray Mendoza in January of '75, would establish their two first world titles as on the 25th, Ray Mendoza would win a tournament to be crowned the first UWA World Light Heavyweight Champion. He had been a multiple-time NWA World Light Heavyweight Champion for EMLL for a number of years, and then the following day, Rene Guajardo would defeat Anibal in the finals of a tournament to crown the first UWA World Middleweight Champion, as was common in some of the international countries, like in Mexico and in England in particular. They'd have a bunch of different weight classes. And with that, that's a lot of the major news that was going on in November of '75. Terry Funk, and of course, had won and then lost the Mid-Atlantic um, Mid-Atlantic version of the United States Heavyweight Championship, as well as after our lengthy reign as the Western States version of the NWA International Heavyweight Championship, would drop that title on the 20th Amarillo to somebody on the mask known as Super Destroyer. This would all lead into his title win against Jack Briscoe in December. We'll get into that though when we December 1975. So with all that being said, then that's all that happened in November 1975 in the world of professional wrestling. If you check the links below, you can contact me directly through my Discord, or you can, of course, leave comments in the discussion section of my channel or on the videos. Don't forget, I live stream Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. The mic channel, you guys should come check it out. I cover many, many forms of niche. I do cover some professional wrestling like here, but also anime, cartoons, comics. You guys, manga. You guys come check it out. Let's see. If you check the links below as well, I still have a bunch of links up for a bunch of different dub studios. You guys might want to check out some of the works. Actually, no, because that's right. This is a professional wrestling one. So, anyways, if you guys like this content, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. I always look forward to the conversation with you guys about these topics, and I hope to catch you on the live streams. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Bye.